will you please welcome the CEO of Smarttech247, Raluca Saceanu.
Thanks, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. It's such a great turnout, and it's so fantastic that we get to celebrate our 10th edition of Zero Day Con. And really good to see all of you today, a lot of customers and friends and colleagues and partners. When we sit down to create the agenda for Zero Day Con, we typically look at the last 12 months, the macro environment, current state of affairs. But something was different this year, and it's because the pace of technology, especially with all of the AI innovation, it feels like we're now at an inflection point. Everything is moving so fast. That's why our intention today is to share perspectives, new perspectives, to connect with each other, learn from each other as well, and have some really good conversations so that we can better understand what this moment means for cybersecurity. So let's dig in. How fast is technology really moving? You could argue that it's moving faster than most security programs can handle. In 2025, the window between initial access and lateral movement was under 30 minutes, and the fastest one was under 1 minute. When you look at the fastest attacks overall, the average between initial access and impact, which could mean ransomware or data exfiltration, was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So think about what that means for your incident response times. Let's paint a picture. You've got an admin who logs in on a Sunday afternoon because they have to deal with the problem that they had the week before. They fall for an identity attack. They move through the environment. It doesn't set off any alarm bells. And by the time anyone notices on a Monday morning, they've already been in your environment for about a day. So you need to think about what does that mean for your own detection, for your incident response times, because that example isn't hypothetical. 70% of the threats that we have investigated in our Security Operations Center last year were identity-related threats. They started exactly like that. But they're not always using stolen credentials. Sometimes those credentials are handed to them. Voice phishing has become one of the fastest growing initial access at the moment, and the target isn't always your executives. It's your help desk. It's your IT people who have access to your systems, who can reset passwords, and who can unlock accounts. Marks and Spencer's learned this the hard way in 2025 when exactly that happened. An attacker called their IT help desk, they impersonated an employee, and they convinced them to change a password. And that phone call resulted in 300 million wiped off their profit and 500 million wiped off their stock value as well. Here's the part that's quite concerning. It's not just sophisticated malware that we're seeing, but it's a lot of tools that you can now find on the dark web. They're highly commoditized. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a tool called ATHR, which is an end-to-end voice phishing, AI-assisted voice phishing platform, where you can buy it for $4,000 and 10% of the profits, and you can use it to generate these attacks in a matter of minutes. Last year, we spoke about the barriers of entry for these criminals collapsing, and now we're seeing that in real time. And it's not just, is someone clicking for me? It's not just this capability, these tools. There's a lot more impact as well. These attacks now produce real-world consequences. And the costliest cyber attack last year was the attack on Jaguar Land Rover, which cost about $1.9 billion across 5,000 organizations. It was classified as the most damaging attack from a financial perspective in British history. And it's not just financially motivated attacks that have these massive impacts. It's geopolitical threats as well. Geopolitical conflict has heavily influenced our threat landscape in the last 12 months, with nation-states and hacktivist attacks nearly doubling. And you can't mention impact without talking about ransomware as well, which continues to be a growing concern for a lot of organizations because it has reached industrial scale. Between 2024 and 2025, we've seen the largest single-year increase from the past 5 years, and the data now points to a further 21% increase in 2026. It's only April, and there's already been 3,000 ransomware victims this year. And who are they going after? It's the sectors that cannot afford any downtime: manufacturing, technology, essential business services, and they're not all large companies. So all this raises the question that is going to sit at the heart of everything that we're going to be talking about today. It's not just how do we stop an attack, but how do we build a cyber capability that can keep our operations running when that attack happens? Because as we saw, 3 forces are making that significantly harder. Geopolitics are directly influencing your threat environment. AI is fused through your infrastructure faster than your security programs can handle. And your operational resilience is only as strong as the weakest link in an ecosystem that you can't control. According to the World Economic Forum, about 65% of large organizations are accounting for geopolitically motivated cyber attacks when thinking about their security program. And that makes sense, because what we've seen is when there's a war, let's say, we see an average of 35% increase in cyber incidents. On February 28th, the US and Israel launched coordinated attacks against Iran. And as a result of that, within hours, cyber activity linked to Iran started spreading like wildfire. And we saw this impact right here at home when Stryker was hit. And Stryker was not involved in the conflict. They were not in the conflict regions. They had nothing to do with the war, but they had a connection with the country involved in the conflict. And they wanted to send a message. But geopolitical cyber risk isn't only about conflict and retaliation, it's also about strategy. China is the perfect example. For years, we've seen Chinese state actors conduct really sophisticated espionage operations. They were embedded in Western infrastructure for months and sometimes years, and their targets were deliberate: energy grids, water systems, telecoms, even cybersecurity software companies. And they were designed to leave absolutely no trace. It was the goal was to pre-position a capability that was waiting for the right geopolitical movement to use it. Now, this has shifted. A joint advisory from 12 global agencies just last week warned the world of a new change in their tactics, a fundamental tactical move. China is now building mass-scale covert networks out of everyday devices, so your home routers, your IoT, your building management system, your office equipment. All of these networks are used for reconnaissance, malware staging, and data theft. And the key here is they haven't stopped what they were doing before, but they're now expanding their operations to the wider world. So you have to think about what that means for you, for your organization, because you don't have to be in, you don't have to be a target, you don't have to be in critical infrastructure. This can impact you at any stage of your operation. There's another threat actor that doesn't really care about espionage or cyber warfare. They just care about money. For years, North Korea has been running an operation that places cyber criminals inside of Western IT organizations as remote IT workers. I'm sure you've heard about this. It's not a new scheme, but it has grown significantly between 2024 and 2025, and it's still active right now. Even though 2 weeks ago, the Department of Justice sentenced laptop farm operators to 8 years in prison, but again, the operation continues. They're making about 300 grand a year, and some of them have 8 to 9 jobs at the same time, and 90% of those funds go directly to North Korea. There's 3 things that have changed this and that make it more dangerous. Number 1, AI has been heavily weaponized across that entire chain that you see. Number 2, Europe is now a primary expansion target. If you think about it, Ireland itself is a country where we have a lot of technology companies, a lot of remote working. So the risk is very real here in Ireland as well. And number three, it's now escalated from just fraud to extortion as well, because they're getting caught, but they're stealing source code, they're stealing data, so now they're asking ransom in exchange for that data back. So now everyone's favorite topic. In the examples that I've given so far, you've seen that AI plays a significant role. The AI innovation that we're witnessing right now is absolutely incredible, and no doubt that it will impact this industry and probably the whole world. There's been a lot of talk lately about Claude Mythos and similar models, particularly when it comes to vulnerability scanning and the fast exploitation of those vulnerabilities. That's only one part of it. The true impact of AI is much wider. An effective cybersecurity strategy today, and you'll be very familiar with this, comes down to a simple mindset. You have to know what you're protecting, understand your attack surface, and build controls at every layer of your security program in order to reduce the blast radius. Most organizations think about this in terms of defense in depth, or the 7 layers of defensive depth. And each layer is a control. Each control reduces the damage that the failure above in the layer can cause. The problem is that most security programs are built to defend these layers individually. There's a lot of telemetry gaps. There's a lot of missing controls. And now with the help of AI, we can identify a lot more vulnerabilities than our capacity to remediate them. So then when you think about your AI program, you're thinking, is that just going to be another layer that we have to secure or to control? It's not, because AI is completely changing your infrastructure. It's fused into your infrastructure, and it's changing the threat landscape at every single layer that already exists. Let's look at the human layer. You've got deepfakes, end-to-end phishing models, very little human involvement, AI-operated phishing. Organizations are now introducing AI agents inside of their operations with no behavioral baseline, no anomaly to detect, no MFA, no lifecycle management. And then you look at the data layer, the risk of data exfiltration, data destruction, as we've seen a few days ago, prompt ingestion, model poisoning, DLP controls that were never designed to protect your data, all that is now being changed by AI. AI is being infused at every single layer of your architecture. And if that wasn't enough, the systems that you also depend on to keep your operations running are also vulnerable, and they are facing the exact same problem, the exact same challenges, and they're becoming more vulnerable. When we talk to our clients about operational resilience, many of them are concerned about their supply chain risk. Even though you build these incredible controls and you assess your suppliers, it's really frustrating because there's an element of it that you simply cannot control. Someone in your supply chain, in your ecosystem, an organization that you may never even have heard of, is making a decision that could impact you. And with AI in the picture, the problem grows significantly, because the uncomfortable reality is that your operational resilience is no longer determined by what you control. Every supplier, every integration, every tool that have quietly authorized access is part of your attack surface. So I'm slowly running out of time, but before I go, I want to leave you with 5 things that you can take back from all of this, and hopefully they'll help to make a difference in your security program. In a world of complexity, the fundamentals are still absolutely crucial. I'm an optimist about this when it comes to basic cyber hygiene and fundamentals. They're really important. Things like patching, continuous testing, conditional access policies, MFA, hardening that every layer that we saw can really help to reduce the blast radius. Number 2, a visibility-led strategy is important. What I mean by that is you need to connect the dots between those layers. You need to build in detection engineering that is based on how the attackers are moving, how they're targeting your organization, and playbooks that really reflect the reality. AI is already in your environment, in your tools, in your suppliers' platforms. You need to understand how AI is embedded at every layer of that security program. You need to map map out your ecosystem really well, because again, there are elements of your ecosystem that you simply cannot control. Everybody has a lot of suppliers. Our supply chain is absolutely enormous, and it's really important that you map that out, but also that you test your operational resilience with that in mind. Bring your suppliers in when it comes to testing that operational resilience, and work with them to create a plan that will keep you operational if a cyber attack happens. So I'm looking forward to hearing all of your perspectives and how you're tackling these challenges, and I really hope that you enjoyed today. Thank you very much.